Thanks for coming today, and thanks also to Jennifer and Rachel and the organizers of Unite for Sight, this Innovators Forum. It's really a pleasure to be here and to have a chance to speak with all of you today. I'm going to be speaking about QuestBridge. As you know, it's a program that my husband Michael and I created a whole bunch of years ago, and we have done a bunch of development and growth of the program. And so part of what Jennifer and Rachel and the other organizers asked me to do is just to share the story of us developing Quest and QuestBridge, and sort of share some lessons learned about our experiences with the organization. So I will do that with you today, but I also wanted to let you know that this speech is also going to be, you're going to be hearing more voices other than mine. So one of the things I wanted to do with sharing QuestBridge is to share that in addition to Michael, who's my husband and co-founder of this organization, many, many people have been involved in developing this with us, and most importantly, the students. And so you're going to hear some voices of students, and one, actually another person as well who's going to be in the presentation, but just wanted you to know that that's also in the works. Let's see. So this talk is going to be, first and foremost, I want to share with you sort of the problem that we are here to try to solve in QuestBridge. So it's going to be about the college admissions situation here for talented low-income students in the US. The second thing I'm going to do is just give you an introduction to what QuestBridge is today as an organization. The next thing I'll share is sort of how we started, so our early days of QuestBridge, and also the growth of the organization over time, and finally some lessons learned, as I mentioned. Hopefully they may be helpful for some of you in the audience who may have your own organizations or are thinking about growing your own organizations. Oh, that's supposed to have some sound attached. Let's see. Oh. This was my first student voice, but you're not hearing it. Do you know if sound? Should I click? Sorry, we're working on this. One sec. Should I try it again? Sorry about that. How many of you have heard about QuestBridge in the audience? Not that many of you. Okay, so this will be an introduction. Should I try it again? Yeah.
If it wasn't for QuestBridge, I wouldn't be here right now. I think a lot of scholars can agree that QuestBridge opens up so many opportunities for education, financial opportunities that we wouldn't have otherwise, and it is definitely a dream maker. It was my goal to move out of the ghetto, so it was my goal to seek education for free at the convenience of my family and myself. And so QuestBridge made that happen.
So Julio got a full scholarship to Emory through QuestBridge, and he's one of many, many students that we've had the pleasure and the honor of working with over the years. So again, the first section is just what problem we're looking to solve. So as it turns out, you may have seen recent studies published about this, but there are 30,000, at least 30,000, really bright students like Julio from low-income backgrounds in America every year, who are qualified to attend the best schools in the country. And the problem is that most of them don't even apply to the best schools, the schools to which they are actually very well qualified academically, certainly, and schools that are really looking for them. So it turns out that 82% of them do not even apply to one college where the average academic credentials of the students are equal to their own. So many of them, you know, just extrapolating from that, many of them are really just under applying in a sense. They're applying to schools that that for them they could go to really, really great schools, and these students often don't realize that that they're even qualified, and also don't realize that these schools are looking for them. And another statistic from a different study shows that 31% of these students who are high performing from low income backgrounds do not go to college at all. And that's compared to 6% of students who are high performing from the highest socioeconomic background.
Well, I had always dreamed of going to college, but QuestBridge equipped me with the tools I needed to be a competitive applicant at top schools beyond my wildest dreams. I wouldn't have even applied to Yale, which is now my alma mater, if it wasn't for QuestBridge.
So when I found out about QuestBridge, it was a huge relief. My mom always told me when I was a kid, especially after the divorce and her income went down, that the only way I would go to college is if I got a full ride. And at first it was like, oh, it's a joke and maybe we'll have to pay a little bit. But then as I got older, she was like, no, you can only go to the school that'll give you a full ride. I don't know. I guess what it was for me, I'd never expected to actually get in, let alone to get a full ride there. And so I remember my phone battery being low. I was like, I have to call my mom right now. And I called her and it's like, Mom, I just got a full ride to Princeton. And immediately she dropped the phone and she said she did a circle and she was at work. She's like, I'm gonna quit work. I was like, Mom, you can't quit work. And
So Shawan, Aaron, Julio, whom you've all seen, are Quest scholars, and these are the students that we are so excited to be working with. And the question is why is this so important to do? And there are lots and lots of reasons, but in addition to it being very rewarding and wonderful for those individual students, we see so much in the media and so forth about how America's falling behind and how, our talent is somehow not up to par. And in fact, as I said earlier, we have 30,000 of these students in America every year from low-income backgrounds, not to mention all the other ones who aren't from low-income backgrounds, but who are also tremendous students in America. And so at least for us to think that we might be participating or contributing to helping to solve this problem, bringing more people into our best educational institutions who could potentially go out and be those future employees and future leaders that are coming from these backgrounds. I think it's an exciting opportunity for us. In addition to that, as I said, a lot of our companies, the reason that people are sometimes very anxious, of course, about American competitiveness is also because they're looking ahead to our workforce and to the fact that we can bring students into the workforce, into great companies who have these backgrounds, not only improves their own personal lives, but also, from our perspective, improves the quality of the workplaces that our students and our future workers can attend. So, for example, these are 3 of our graduates from several years ago, and one of them is a professor at Carnegie Mellon, another one is a researcher at Harvard, and a third one is actually a doctor and an MBA at Stanford, or she trained at Stanford. And the idea that our best institutions, our best graduate schools, our best companies will also have students from low-income backgrounds is actually really important, because they are then bringing a perspective that a lot of times is underrepresented even inside of the company. So we know that we have this problem of underrepresentation in the colleges, but in fact it extends, of course, to the workforce. So these are another three of our students. So in the upper left is the article actually was written by a Quest scholar who works at the Wall Street Journal now. The one on the right is a Marshall scholar, and the third one down here is a partner at a law firm. So the idea of having, great talent from these backgrounds, I think, is very compelling, not only, again, for those individuals and their families and their communities, but also for society. So our common goal here in this room is, many of you, I think some of you are educators, some of you are working in business, some of you are nonprofit executives, and others are students. And it seems that all of us can agree that we don't want talent in America to be wasted. So the idea that all of these students are out there just not realizing the opportunities that they have is what we at Quest are hoping to make a small dent, at least, in helping to change that. So what is QuestBridge? How do we work? Today, our main program is the National College Match, and it basically is, you can kind of think of it as a free online common application for talented low-income students. So you know the common application that students use to apply to college. QuestBridge has its own application that we manage, who actually Jennifer's husband Alexander helps us to manage. We use his product called Slate, but QuestBridge owns its own application, and also we design our own questions. We basically administer the entire application process, and through Quest, which is free for the students to apply to, we then forward their applications on to our 35 partner colleges, and those colleges then choose to select or not select the Quest scholars or the Quest finalists that we select. If they get accepted to our partner schools, and I'll show you a little bit who those schools are, but if they get accepted to those schools, they usually get either a full 4-year scholarship or very near to full 4-year scholarship. So our partner colleges have agreed to essentially fund these students in their schools. We started in 1994, as was stated earlier, and at that time we had 22 students that we worked with, and we worked with them for the period of time that they were juniors in high school, all the way through to their graduation, usually from college. Today, nearly 5,000 Quest scholars attend our partner colleges, our 35 partner colleges across the country, and we get around 1,600 placed per year into those schools. And these are our schools. So Yale is one of them, just a few others, Stanford and UVA, Pomona, Princeton, MIT, Columbia, Carleton, Colorado. So they're all over the country. And we're very proud of the fact that our students come from all over the country also. You may have heard the statistics that in these very highly selective colleges, usually the applicants actually are applying from a small number of geographies. So typically they apply from just a few cities, and they tend to be concentrated on the coasts. So we actually get applicants from all over the country, including the middle of the country. We usually get applicants from just about every state in America. And that's one of the reasons, and one of the things that the colleges really appreciate about QuestBridge, is that we are able to find students from all over to apply to their schools. So this last year we had our most successful season yet, thankfully, and we had almost 13,000 applicants to QuestBridge, and we selected, I mentioned finalists earlier, we selected 4,773 finalists, and those are the students who you might consider to have been selected by Quest. And then from that point, we forward those applications onto the colleges, and they can decide whether or not they want to accept the students. And like I said, when they do that, if they accept the students in the early round, which just happened last December, I think, the students get a guaranteed full 4-year scholarship. And if they get accepted in the regular decision round, they typically have to reapply every year, but it's usually a nearly full or full scholarship. And so our finalist profile, we have students from all races, all ethnicities, and like I said, all over the country. And we have additional programs, I mentioned two, but there's a third one that's also very important. So the first one is College Prep Scholarship. That's our early junior year program, which I will tell you a little bit more about later. Quest Scholars Network is a program that we actually have during the college years. So we spend some time supporting the students, helping them to develop networks during the period of time that they're at college. So each one of our partner schools has a Quest Scholars Network chapter that the students actually can participate in. And our third program that's not listed here, but it should be, is called Quest for Excellence. And it's actually a program, again, for juniors. And those have specific foci. So, for example, we have a Quest for Excellence program in New York City. And that is one of our more substantial pilot Quest for Excellence programs. And we basically are doing deep dive into New York City, and we'll be doing that in other regions as well, and across other kinds of students. So for example, women interested in computer science, or veterans, or we have a number of different specialized recruitment programs, and Quest for Excellence is sort of the umbrella that covers that. Oop. So like I said, we have 5,000 Quest scholars now, around 5,000 attending our partner schools. This group of 30 plus kids actually are the liaisons to our Quest Scholar Network chapter. So they actually choose to be leaders of our Quest scholars on our different partner college campuses. And they were all together in San Francisco in the summer, so we took a big picture of them. And then after college, they tend to do quite well. Many Quest scholars as you can imagine, coming from these great schools, go on to great jobs. And so these are just a small representation. We also have a number of students who choose to be teachers and go into nonprofits, and many of them are currently in graduate school. So they tend to do very well after they get into our partner schools. And it's, very much because the partner schools are so exceptional that our students are able to do well and actually feel quite supported. So who are Quest Scholars in addition to what I've already told you? Here's some statistics about them. 72% of them are first generation to college in the US. So most of them actually do not have members of their families who have attended college. 76% are eligible for free or reduced price lunch, and the median family income is $31,572, and that's for a family of 4. So they are genuinely low-income families. And they do very well in school. So 88% in the top 10% of their class, etc. 75% score over 1,200 on the SAT, combined reading and math. But those are just the numbers. And as I say here, part of what, for us at least, for Michael and me and our staff, part of why we do this and why we love doing this is because the students are way more than their numbers, as you know. And being around students like this who come from backgrounds that are very challenging in many situations, have the wherewithal, the grit, the resilience, the kind of character to actually make it as far as they have, many times without support, without a lot of mentorship. Some of them do have very good mentorship, but most of them, like I said, because they're first generation, they don't know what nobody's told them, because how could they? So, and I put that second to last bullet there, rebels, because in many ways, if you think about it, if you're, doing really, really well in school from a background or a community where not that many people are doing that, or not that many people are that motivated to do so, then it's sort of an act of rebellion in some ways to decide that you're just going to, put aside the temptations and really work hard and become, work for something that you can see in the future, but not necessarily obvious now. And so a couple of student stories to give you a better sense of it.
The information from my QuestBridge application and my Stanford supplements allowed me to paint a fuller picture of myself. I was able to show not just the child who suffered the loss of his mother, a boy who does not know his father, or the young man who endured homelessness with his sister, but the product of those experiences, the joking little big kid still here smiling because he's overcome all those things.
Well, my parents are deaf, both of them. It's not a genetic thing, so that's why me and my brother don't have that. But it was pretty hard growing up with because there's a lot more responsibility on my part. So I had to serve as their translator for some things, and just motivate myself for school and not have that force behind me. But despite all of that, it was I could tell that they love me a lot, from everything they've done. Well, I don't know, I worried about them a lot, on my side anyways. I worried about them quite a bit, because I was the younger sibling, so my brother had already gone off, so I was their only translator, so I worried about leaving them on their own. But I guess it seems like they've adjusted pretty well. So
these are the kinds of students we get the pleasure of working with and spending time with, and there's many, many, many thousands of them in America. And as I said in this one, everybody wants them but can't find them. And I put the find in quotes because actually, through standardized test scores, through other ways of finding students through their academic performance, in fact, it is possible, quite possible, to find those high-performing students by finding the students who do well in the test, cross-listing that with those from low-income zip codes, and then really kind of trying to get them to apply. But the tricky part is not actually knowing who those students are, it's actually convincing them that this is real, that this is an opportunity, and that these colleges actually are interested in them. And understandably, trust is low, and here's a couple of students sharing a bit of their stories on this.
Well, I found out about QuestBridge the junior year of my high school, not too soon before the application was due, and I thought it sounded too good to be true. I wasn't quite sure at first, but being really interested in it, I did go to the website, and I saw that since the website, the link was real, it had to be somewhat legitimate.
Well, I actually have a couple friends who thought, or who heard from their guidance counselors that QuestBridge was a scam, unfortunately. But they actually pursued it and did their own research, and they realized, nope, QuestBridge is totally real, and it can get you places that you could never imagine you would go.
And the crazy thing is that she lives in like San Jose, California. So, you know, having educators and guidance counselors who don't know about the opportunity and think it's a scam or pass that on to their students, that happens all the time. You know, there's a lot of doubt, of course, and for good reason. I mean, a lot of these students have heard stories about colleges offering like 1 year of financial aid and then withdrawing that so that the rest of their time they have to take lots of loans and debts, and that's not going to work for most of these students. They're very responsible. They're very concerned about making sure they don't saddle their families with a lot of debt. And so for them to believe and know that this is a full scholarship or nearly full is a really big deal, and actually a part of the key to this all working. So yeah, so I sort of shared this. Basically, you know, for these students, it's about building trust, and like I said, it's not a matter of finding them, it's about converting them, basically enabling them to trust the process enough that they actually will take the time to apply to our very long online application. So really quickly, I will go through how we got here. We did not start out with 35 partner colleges, and we did not start out with so many students. So I'll give you a little history of Quest. We started actually in 1994, as Lanch mentioned, at Stanford, rather. We had a small program called Quest Leadership. That's my husband Michael in the middle, and I'm right next to him. And we started that in '94 when I was an undergraduate, and he was just finishing medical school, actually. And we lived with the students. We spent 5 weeks with them. We sort of lived in a dorm, and it was that, you know, classic summer program kind of thing. But we learned a lot in the process of doing that. We had, I think, 11 or 12 programs over the years that we ended up really investing individually into the students, and they, so we had them between the summer of their junior and senior year in high school, and then we basically mentored them into the college admissions process and through college. So around, you know, I used to say between 15 and 25, basically we sort of worked with them into their first job. And this was a poster that we had made a long time ago, before we used computers and stuff like that. And we had, but the Quest Leadership Program ended up doing quite well. The students, we had a 100% college acceptance rate, 99% college graduation rate, and we didn't really know that this was going to happen. When we were doing this program initially, you know, we had hoped that the students would do well, but we didn't realize just that we were onto something to the extent that we were. And so 80% of them were accepted to Stanford and Harvard. The rest of them went to wonderful schools, Swarthmore, UC Berkeley, you know, many of the small liberal arts colleges. And we learned what I'm calling the 6 pillars, which are basically these, you know, 6 pillars of how to support these really bright low-income students through this stage of their life. And so college access, success, career success, leadership, life education, meaning things like financial education, health and wellness, those kinds of things, and public service. And so we basically learned how to do that through our little program. Up there is one of our graduation ceremonies. We taught public speaking, they had labs, and we also did fun things like they danced and played their instruments and stuff. This up in the right corner is them talking to a Stanford professor. All the classes were taught by Stanford or Harvard professors when we were at Harvard. And then we had this thing which we called reflection time, which was a time that we set aside for the students to have some quiet, which you can imagine, you know, they were like 16 or 17, and they were sort of like, what, why, at first. But then they started actually really appreciating and loving this time. And every year, pretty much without fail, the kids would come up to me and say, Anna, can we please have more reflection time? And it's just a time to reflect on your life and think about where you're going and who you are and how you got here. And it ended up being a very powerful part of the program. So because we were doing pretty well in the first 5 years, we started to think about scale. And in fact, at this time, we were very much fundraising dependent as an organization. So we would have donors who gave money to us, and a board that was really quite active. And they, everybody was saying, oh, you know, this is working. You've got to make more of these. Do more, do more. And at that time also, we started to get thousands of applicants for our small 22 spots at Stanford. And then when we grew to Harvard, we had 44 spots. But you know, having 2,000 or 3,000 applicants at a time, we ended up, you know, realizing we were turning away all of these great kids who were giving us their time in their applications, and trying so hard to move their own lives forward. So we had these debates among the board members and the advisors and the donors, and some people literally said, Anna and Michael, you have a moral imperative to expand this program. So we thought, oh gosh, this person's very, very passionate about it. And then other people, board members and so forth, would say, you know, you're crazy, don't even try. You can't duplicate yourselves, you can't duplicate the model. It's just so high touch, you can't do that. So we actually were very much trying to struggle with this question of how do you scale and how do you do something more with this. And the two kind of camps were more summer programs like what we had at Stanford, or develop more college partners, but do less with each student and see, you know, and have what we ended up calling QuestBridge. So we actually tried the first model first. So that's when we went to Harvard, is we decided, okay, we'll try this summer program model, let's see what happens. And in fact, it was so successful that we were like, wow, this is really, really great. And the kids did great, and Harvard was very supportive. But it was unsustainable. I mean, it was really expensive. I told you we were fundraising dependent at that time. It was very expensive, and I was traveling like 8 times a year between Stanford and Harvard, and it was just, you know, we realized this is not the way we can, and plus we then only had 22 more students, not, you know, thousands or anything. So we thought, okay, this is not probably the scaling model for us. So, and at the same time, the world was changing. This was around 2000 and 2001, and you know, the fact that everybody was getting online, we could build this this online application program and process where we could actually, the students could apply from anywhere, and we could share those applications with the schools virtually. We didn't have to send paper or PDF or whatever that we were doing before. So everything was changing, and there was this sort of awareness as well that more needed to be done for these students. And so QuestBridge was actually the scaling of that. If you remember that 6-pillar thing I showed you, it's the scaling of the first one, which was college access. And we decided to pick off that one pillar and try to scale it, and that's what we did with QuestBridge. Now, we tried this, and we went to our colleges, and we went to a few colleges, and we said, hi, we're, you know, Michael and Anna, and we're doing this thing, and we have this idea, we have all these applicants, what do you think? You know, and by the way, in order to actually work with us, you have to promise you'll give them full scholarships. You know, and by the way, and you can't take them away either. You have to sort of like commit to that for 4 years. And the college was like, nope, nope, nope. And so, but there were a small number who actually gave us a chance. And so, we were lucky that a few colleges, and because of our earlier model, a few colleges were willing to give us a chance. And here is one of the deans who's sharing his experience. Tom Parker at Amherst.
But mostly, what attracted to me was this idea of, within QuestBridge, we're not going to talk about financial aid in complex terms. We're going to say, to get you into the conversation, we're going to throw this word scholarship out. Now, I talked to a number of my peers, and none of them bought it. None of them bought it at all. You know, they did not buy it. They came up with 100 objections to thinking about it. And then Michael did a great thing for me too, which when I presented the stuff to the Faculty Committee on Admission and Financial Aid, he provided me with 4 or 5 examples. And these were super students, absolutely super students of all races. I remember pretty distinctly, one was, you know, a low-income Vietnamese kid, another one was, you know, an African-American, a Latina, you know, a white kid from the rural community. And I presented those to the committee and just said, here are 4 or 5 kids. We're never going to see these kids in our applicant pool. Wouldn't you like to have them? And the faculty all said, yeah, we'd love to have them. And I said, well, we can.
So we were lucky, Tom Parker and the president of Amherst at the time, Tony Marks, took a risk on us. And we had then, after that, you know, this college has started to lean in. In addition, in 2005, we had a very good thing happen to Quest, which is that Tim Brady, who was the former VP of product at Yahoo, at the time had retired from Yahoo and was looking for something to do in education, and he said, okay, I'll come in here and lead your organization for a little while. And he was perfect because, as I mentioned before, technology was just getting rolling with us, and he knew how to use technology in ways that almost nobody else did, and he also knew how to scale an organization. Yahoo went from very small to very big in a short period of time, and he was just an extremely high quality, very kind and generous person who gave his time to Quest because he believed in the idea. So he got us all the way up to over 20 schools. And then as this was happening, our partner colleges grew. So we started in 2003 with just 3, Amherst being one of them, and we still had our Quest Leadership Program going at Stanford for 2 years after starting QuestBridge. And then I'll just go through these quickly. So we grew. And that's where we are now. So by now we have 1,600 or so get accepted to college every year through QuestBridge. We're hoping that that will continue to grow. These are our numbers. You can take a second to look at that. But basically, the growth has been quite encouraging for us. Whoops. Let's see, did I, oh no. Okay, so then, we started to innovate again after sort of trying the pilot of QuestBridge, and we decided to try a new program which is called the College Prep Scholarship, and that's for juniors. So part of what we learned was that getting the students in early, catching them in time for them to apply, giving them a chance to learn a little bit about the process before they actually have to turn an application was very powerful. And we have a college fair where the colleges come and sort of get to know the students. And so,
and then the other really valuable thing that I learned, I guess, was just like the financial aid aspect, because I learned just in general a lot of facts that I didn't know before, like all of the scholarships and the endowments that these schools have and that they want to give, help. Because I always thought that needs blind meant that they were like, oh, okay, if you don't have that much money, I guess we'll admit you and deal with it later. But really, they're looking for students that they can help and that they can give a leg up, like students who really need it. So.
I've been given tools that I didn't know existed. I've been given tips that I didn't know I had to know. And things that I never would have fathomed are within the reach of my possibilities. Things that I never even considered would be a possibility for me. I mean, for me to come here and for me to be part of this collegiate experience. So we're also fortunate that our students do quite well in the schools. They have around a 90% or over graduation rate. And if any of you know about graduation rates in America in college for low-income students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, the graduation rate typically is, studies have said, between 25 and 45%. So our students, again, they're tremendously academically qualified and they do very well in our schools. So the last part of the talk is lessons learned and how we, what we learned in the process. And again, hopefully this will be helpful for some of you. The first one is just to challenge convention. That graphic has 3 sheep, but that you can't really see them. At the time that we started QuestBridge, people were like, you guys are crazy. Are you really going to convince the schools to do that? And it's actually the first time that the schools have actually accepted an outside application as in lieu of their own. A lot of them actually still require the students to turn in their supplements for their colleges, but they oftentimes will use the Quest application as the application. So that was also an unusual development. But because we were able to leverage technology to do this, and because the schools were really looking for these students, it worked. So challenging convention is a good thing. Also, as I said, the academic credentials of these students is really exceptional, but there were other things that we learned over the years. You can't just assume that they know, for example, how to make the most of office hours or how to even literally sit at a formal dinner table. So there's lots of stuff that we realized we wanted to teach the students, but the idea, and that is really good material to teach kids when they're in college. But for us, we realized the academic gap was actually unnecessary. It's the cultural gap that had more to work with, or we had more to do. The second one, and by the way, there are 8 lessons learned. So the second one is clearly defining the problem. I think a lot of people say, you know, oh, our colleges don't have talented low-income students because we can't find them. As I said, that's actually not true. It turns out that we just need to convince those students who we know where they are, actually, to convince them that these opportunities are real and to convince them to actually take the time to apply and turn in the application. Seek heroes in plain sight. My staff members were looking at that and they thought, oh, are you advocating for Apple Company? Actually, that's not what that is. It's just a graphic that one of our folks put together. For us, you know, all of these pieces were in place already, right? I mean, the students, the educators, and the deans and admission staff, they all were out there before. And they are sort of like heroes right under our noses. And it's just about, you know, keeping our eyes open and being conscious of the fact that these people actually wanted to meet each other, as it turns out. But the key is also, the fourth lesson is to design the platform that enables them all to shine, right? So for the students, it was really important to get them into the application pool, that you would get a full scholarship. Because as I said, they're very responsible, very conscientious students, and if they weren't going to get a full scholarship, they wouldn't even have taken the time. In addition to that, the application is free. It's customized to those students, and actually the application questions are designed to draw out from these kids. They're quite different from the common application. They're designed to draw out special qualities, and so the schools will often say, I learned more from your Quest application than I would have from the common app, because you ask questions that enable the students to really shine. Educate them sooner. And finally, the last bullet under here, basically what it means is that we've done a test of our finalists who have gotten to become Quest finalists but did not get into one of our partner colleges. And it turns out that it's really clear that just the very act of applying to QuestBridge will change outcomes. So it changes the way they think about their application prospects. It changes what they think is possible for them. Even if they don't go to one of our schools, they tend to go to a really good school. Yeah, so and then basically for the educators, it's, you know, some of these educators will only see one or two of these students every few years, and they don't quite know what to do with it. Now, if we get the word out and continue to share the opportunity, then these educators will know and have a place to go to send their students, again, that's free for them. And then colleges, they will come to QuestBridge and get thousands of great applicants, you know, all in one stroke. Lesson 5, structure for scale. For us, it was really important to structure our program so that we could grow and the second one there, generate revenue, not fundraising dependent. It turns out that our partner schools actually pay QuestBridge a fee to help them find these students. So our fundraising is quite minimal. When we had the old program, we actually had to raise around $1 million a year just to keep those two programs going. Now, about 80% of or 75 to 80% of our operating expenses are covered by partner fees, which is wonderful for us because even though we still fundraise, it's not as much as we used to have to every year. Third one, not personality dependent. You know, part of our struggle with scaling Quest leadership was how do we, you know, duplicate our very special staff in all these different places. And it turns out that, you know, now there are plenty of people who could walk into QuestBridge and run it very, very well. And it doesn't require a certain type of person or necessarily any one personality to happen. And then our expandable structure, which, you know, we keep adding schools, we keep adding opportunities, and the structure lends itself to that. Lesson 6, align incentives. This is basically around giving the students a reason to apply at the earlier age, the younger ages, juniors, and then their application process is so much easier and sort of more fluid senior year, because the application to the junior year program, College Prep Scholarship, is very similar to the National College Match program that they have to apply through, you know, 6 months later. Make room for luck. I think in any organization, any kind of growth situation or any life, basically, that we have to be open to things happening that we don't expect. So Tim Brady coming on board was one of the best things that could have happened to Quest ever, and the recession wasn't so great. So make room for luck, and finally build momentum and pivot. So what we learned from this experience was, you know, if we had thought about starting QuestBridge without our old program, we could never have gotten, you know, the call with the colleges, we would not have had the credibility to be able to say, oh, hi, we're just randomly calling you and have this applicant pool and we want you to take our students. We had sort of 10 years of, no, we know what it takes. We understand that they have to, they have to get this full scholarship. So for us, and I think the lesson here is whatever it is you're doing right now, just do it really, really well. Because when we built Quest Leadership, we had no idea it was going to turn into QuestBridge. But we just tried really hard to gain momentum to do what we could to make that a very successful program. And it was only because of that and what we learned there that enabled us to build QuestBridge, which now has a nice impact on the problem we're trying to solve. That was the last lesson, but I have a little bit more. So how you can help, if you know anyone or if you know any educators who might know students who are interested in Quest, there's our website, questbridge.org. Please do send them our way. We're always looking for tremendous students who are qualified and academically qualified, but who also may not realize these opportunities are available for them. And I'll say one more thing before you hear just a few more student voices, then I'll wrap up. For us, for Michael and me and those of us who work in the office, one of the things that's most rewarding is that working with these students also means that they are, not only are we hopefully changing individual lives, but they are then going back to their communities, their families, their schools, their regions, their cities, their towns, and sharing the opportunity and saying that, that this is real. And so for us, that's really the kick is, oh wow, could we potentially be investing in these individuals who can then go out and really make a difference? And so a couple of the students that I'll share with you now speak to that, and the other two that you'll hear just talk about QuestBridge generally, and then we'll be done.
A more personal side of it is that I was given a lot of hope in terms of my life opportunities through going to Oxford and getting a great education. It is the experience of the education and being with fellow students who love learning like I did. I really like the idea of by working with Quest, I can, through some manner, I can be helping serve that common goal of giving those students that hope and sort of passing it on.
And QuestBridge is just so instrumental, I think, in me getting to where I was, that I'm really grateful, and I hope everyone who can take advantage of the opportunity does.
So QuestBridge is amazing. Anyone out there who is hesitant, can this really be that great of an opportunity? The answer is yes.
As I head into college, I look towards the future and imagine the change that I can create. I see myself representing the people I grew up around, the people who have suffered, and I see myself giving them hope.
So that last student actually just got accepted to the University of Chicago like a couple months ago. And one thing that's fun about him is that he happens to go to a high school called Glencoe High School in Hillsboro, Oregon, which is a rural town in Oregon. And it turns out that that is the same high school that Michael, my husband, went to. So it's kind of fun to have everything coming around full circle. Okay, that's it. Thank you. So I think we have a little period of time that I can answer questions if anyone has one.
Hi, sorry, I had a question. It was more so for the people in the last session of speakers, but I guess there wasn't enough time. So my name's Chiad Zahiri, and I'm a student at Anglia Ruskin, and I've actually come from the UK because I have a dream, and I want to start a herbal tea company specializing in herbal teas from Africa, because if you think about it, how many herbal teas from Africa do you know of?
Not that many, and I love tea.
There's only one, rooibos from South Africa,
right,
so it's not very representative of a whole continent.
Yes.
And when people look at Africa, like today, it's been a really inspiring day to see that, okay, people really do sit down and think, how can we help third world countries? How can we help people enrich themselves and build themselves up? And I've just got a very simple solution that we've got natural resources, and people think of natural resources of things like oil and coal, but what about the plants? And so it's a very simple concept of just basically providing access to market for small-scale farmers, because I'm from Zimbabwe and our agricultural sector has really changed. And right now, a lot of farmers, they don't have the resources. And I can actually say we, because I'm a farmer's daughter myself, and I know we don't have resources, we don't have chemicals anymore, we don't have pesticides anymore, but if we invest in our own natural indigenous crops, we can actually take them somewhere, and if we have a market, we can actually make a sustainable source of income. And we won't be just talking aid. So I really just want to promote trade. And I'm going to ask you, so I'm guessing you probably had the same thing when you first started with the Quest leadership, is how do you get something, because I'm guessing it's a different model. Everyone's used to Western, more developed countries giving to African countries or to third world countries. And my system is saying, we can offer you this. How do you get people to sort of adopt a new system? And would you have any advice for that?
Oh, that's a really, really good question, and I'm not sure, other than making it more visible to people, right? I mean, the opportunity, you're talking about actually developing the tea and selling it, is that?
That's the idea, like developing, it's not even just me, there are other organizations, there's like Bioinnovation Zimbabwe and Phytotrade, but that's 2 companies trying to like commercialize over 200,000 species which are around Africa. So I would say, I think it's about making it more visible and clear to your potential markets that this opportunity exists, and also I would think for this audience and for many audiences that the social benefit also is clear. You know, making sure that part of purchasing the tea, the fact that you're helping small local farmers, is a part of the experience of those who are consuming it, because then they'll feel really good about that, and they'll want to, do that more and more. Yeah, can I just say one thing to the audience?
Sure.
Thank you. To the audience, I'm guessing there's quite a lot of academics here, and one of the barriers I'm finding in starting like a herbal tea company with indigenous herbs is that there's a lot of regulatory barriers, and there's a lot of research that needs to be done to actually verify and meet these regulations. So I'm not saying let's get rid of the regulations, but I'm saying if you can help, if you're a researcher, if you know of a biochemist or a political scientist or an economist that can help with getting the message across or helping to promote this, then I'm going to be outside during the break. I've got business cards, I've got a website, we can get in touch, do come, and I really look forward to meeting people that actually want to help make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I work in higher ed, so I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I was just curious about the students who applied but didn't even make the finalist round. How do you guys help them? I just think they must get so discouraged. Are they told to apply directly to schools?
Yep, they are. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to hear about that process a little bit.
So we definitely, and our application is very long. It takes a significant investment of time on the part of the students, and so we very much want to encourage. And it's also, I didn't mention this earlier, but it's an early process. So it happens actually even before before typical early decision. So our application is due in the end of September, which is pretty early for students. Those of you who know process, it's quite early, and so we are very grateful and very impressed by any student who gets all of that together, their teacher recommendations, their essays, and like I said, the application is very long, and so we want to make sure that even if we can't accept a student as a finalist, that the messaging is very strong around, encouraging them to keep going, to apply directly. And we do have a student resource center on our website, which has more, sort of general advice about college admissions, so we encourage them to use that as well. Yeah, sure.
I applaud you all for the work that you're doing. Fantastic. My question centers around the students once they are in school. My experience with underserved, underrepresented minorities is that they are very much low income, very tied to the family, and to get them uprooted from that familiar environment to a relatively strange environment is very, very difficult.
It is.
So how did you do that?
Yeah.
And how do they manage to stay the whole part?
It's a really, really good question, and this is a person who clearly knows.
Right. There's a part B.
Okay.
The other part that I've experienced with the students is that the family, because you say they are providers, and the families I've seen will call up and say, we need you to do this and come here, and it interrupts their education.
Hard.
So how did you overcome those?
It's very hard, and these are really good questions. Did everybody get the question? Yeah. Okay, so the first part around how we get them onto the campuses, and also how we help them to stay there. There's a few things. One is the full scholarship actually helps a lot. So the design of it is just basically giving them, the guarantee they don't have to worry about money when they're in school. So that's very helpful because, each one of them would be stressing out about, in fact, in the early days of QuestBridge, we would have students who would come to campus and get like 3 jobs, just to send home to the family, to make, the holidays happen, because they're the ones who do that in the family, etc. And then it causes their academics to suffer. So for us, one is the guaranteed full 4-year scholarship helps a lot for the matched kids, and then the really good aid for the other ones. So that's one thing that takes some pressure off. The second thing is we have, as I mentioned, we have Quest Scholar Network chapters, and they are collections of Quest scholars who come together regularly, oftentimes a lot, to talk about what does it mean to be a Quest Scholar on this campus. Most of them are, the vast majority are first generation to college students, and so they can share with each other in a way that they couldn't necessarily with just the random person sitting next to them in class, about their struggles, their fears, their sense of feeling out of place, or that they, the class issue actually can be felt very strongly by our students, right? And they just feel like, I can't afford to like go out to a nice dinner with everybody. It's not that I'm boring. I just can't, who has the money? So I think helping them to feel like they belong on the campus. But so for us, it's a balance too, because we want them to feel like they belong, and community is so important, as you know, for any one of us, like to feel like we're a part of something that's bigger than ourselves. But also that for us, it's a balance of making sure that they have a community, but also encouraging them to integrate with their schools and not isolate themselves either, because that's not helping them either, right? So to show them and share with them, there are really ways of making this work for you, and also having people who came before them to say, look, it is possible, you can do this. And so to the extent that we can share each other's stories, the students' stories, that will also be helpful. The second piece of your question around families and how that's a strong pressure, and it is for a lot of students. I mean, many of our students have very, very supportive families, but a lot of them, also there's a lot of fear, right, a lot of stress among the parents, and if only because it's strange, right, to go off someplace far away to this school that's, so foreign. So again, we have opportunities for students to talk about that, to share and to support each other. And I think the best way that we can support our students is also to foster them supporting each other, because there are now so many, so many across our campuses that, again, trying to build that community and make it okay to talk about it. Right, to basically say you don't have to pretend everything's okay, right? It's hard. And so for us to be very open and honest about that and give them forums and ways to talk about it, we have a blog that they can write. Sometimes people write in the blog, I went to college and it was really exciting and fun. I went back home and it was like, it was so hard, and so to make that okay, to make it open, and it's always going to be a challenge and a struggle, but we try to do what we can, again, to build support, build community, and to empower them to help each other.
So you don't actively do anything with the family to teach and train them?
Well, we do, the only amount that we do specifically with parents is actually at our college prep conferences, where we bring the juniors there, and we actually do have sessions explicitly for the parents. So there's a full day for the parents, and then we teach them about admissions, we teach them about financial aid, we teach them that this is real, and actually the college admissions officers speak to the parents as well, so they give them their time. And so we do kind of share and enable them to share their own concerns. And in fact, one of our favorite panels is a student-parent panel, where a couple of pairs of student and parent come up to the stage and talk about what it was like to send their student away. And that sometimes diffuses some of the anxiety. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Was that your question? Okay. Okay.
Do you have more time?
I think, do I have one more? Oh, we're done. Sorry, we don't have more time, but you know what? I'll be around afterwards and we can talk. Yeah. Okay, thank you, everyone.